Hi everyone, welcome back to my training series entitled Understanding EMV. This is the 19th video in the series, and in this video we will be covering the EMV transaction, step 7. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's do a quick recap. We've got Bob waiting at the till, waiting to complete his purchase. We know that we had selected EMV for the technology for this transaction, so Bob's EMV card inserted into an EMV capable terminal. We then selected the application, so there were multiple applications or multiple virtual cards on the card. The terminal and the card had a conversation. The terminal presented a candidate, it built a candidate list, using all the mutually supported applications, and we ended up selecting the primary credit card application that resides on Bob's card. The terminal and the application then had a conversation and they exchanged some information. Just step 3. In step 4, the terminal underwent a cryptographic check or process where it authenticated or verified that the card is genuine. It's genuinely been issued by an issuer. We then had a look at the condition of the transaction itself, just to check that the transaction, falls within the acceptable product rules of the card and the terminal. We then verified that the human being, the card holder, is a genuine authorized card holder. And that brings us to the terminal risk management, where we checked certain pieces of information it brings us through the terminal risk management, where we are going to check certain pieces of information so that the terminal can conduct its specific risk management process, and this is what's going to form the bulk of of this particular video. All right, so what is terminal risk management? Terminal risk management is the process performed by the terminal to determine if a transaction should be sent online. The process comprises of the following checks. Okay, we verify the flow limits or the transaction value against the flow limit. We check to see if the card is a brand new card. We do some alcohol or UCOL processing. If this function is meant to be performed by the terminal in the transaction, the terminal will undergo something that we've spoken about before, called random online selection. We have a look at the hot card on the terminal, and we try to see if the pen on the card matches an entry or matches a pen that is stored on the hot card list. And we'll discuss a little bit about the merchant forces transaction online function. Okay, let's talk about flow limits first, right? So during the transaction, the terminal will have a look at the value of the transaction, so the amount authorized, tag 9F02, and it compares it against the terminal flow limit, right, which is tag 9F1B. We spoke a bit about flow limits in an earlier video under the EMV acquiring section. Okay. The next check the terminal will perform is to verify if the card is new. Okay, so some issuers configure their chip cards to go online on the very first transaction performed by the card. Okay, so this may be used to activate certain account level requirements, or to serve as a check the customer has received the card and is able to transact with it. And in order for the terminal to determine whether the card is new, it interrogates the ATC tag 9F36, and if ATC equals 0, it means it's a new card. It's never been used in a transaction before, so this is the first transaction, which means it's a new card, right? We then go to alcohol UCOL processing. You guys will remember in the EMV issuing videos earlier on, where we discussed the various parameters that are encoded on the card. We have the cards issued with certain, um, lower and upper cumulative offline limits. What So generally this is done by the card, not the terminal, but I've included it here because it is part of the terminal risk management process. So what you'll find is in earlier EMV implementations, okay, and this may still exist in some regions in the world today, okay, where the alcohol UCOL processing was not done by the card, okay, or is not done by the card, it's actually done by the terminal. Okay, so if in this transaction the terminal is expected to conduct this assessment, then we will include it under terminal risk management for the transaction. Okay, obviously if the card is expected to do it, then it won't be included as part of terminal risk management. It'll form part of card risk management. Random online selection, you guys should be familiar with this concept. Okay, we did speak about it earlier in the EMV acquiring section. We spoke about what makes a terminal EMV compliant. So if you guys recall that, basically, the terminal will generate a random number, and based on the output, it could decide that a transaction could go online, without there being any other reason for it to do so. The only criteria is that it was just randomly selected. It's not related to the value of the transaction or any of the other parameters stored on the card, right, or on the terminal. Next, we have something called the hot card list or exception file processing. Remember, we did speak about this as well, where terminals have a set of cards that have been reported stolen, and these are downloaded from terminals on a daily basis. And so basically, during this terminal risk management check, the terminal just compares the pen of the card to see if it exists on this hot card list. Okay, the next one is merchant forces online. So what this means is that some terminals allow the merchant to force a transaction online if the teller is suspicious, of the card holder or the transaction being processed. So if they suspect, that the person standing in front of them, may not have the name that is personalized on the card, or of the suspicion of anything else. If they suspect that the card has been stolen and is now being used to do the transaction, this is the way for the teller to request additional verification without really notifying the cardholder or the person standing in front of them that this is what they are doing. So usually there's a hotkey on the terminal, and the teller will press this hotkey, without letting the person standing there know what they're doing. And if this is the case, if the terminal, if the teller does want to force this transaction online, he or she can do so without the cardholder being aware. So basically, there's no danger, there's no physical threat to the teller, because the person standing on the other side of the counter isn't aware of this happening, right? The important thing to note here is that when we've completed all of the checks that we've just spoken about, okay, the results of these checks are recorded in the TVR. So you'll find that they're recorded in bytes, byte 4, bits 8 to 4, in byte 2, bit 4, and in byte 1, bit 5 of the TVR. And that's basically your terminal risk management in a nutshell. In the next video, we are going to be looking at step 8, which is terminal action analysis. Okay, so once again, thank you for spending the time with me, and I look forward to catching you guys in my next video. Take care. Cheers, everyone. Bye bye.